I'm Julie Duncan-Miller, the researcher on the Impetus project exploring supported self-management in stroke. I'm presenting on behalf of the project team led by Dr. Lisa Kidd at the University of Glasgow. Our poster here summarises the findings from our Q study, looking at what supported self-management looks like and how it works in relation to community stroke care. Let me talk you through the Q study to further understand Q as a research method, and also to provide you with some information to help you understand how you might move forward with supported self-management in your own clinical practice. Spoiler alert, the main finding is that you may understand supported self-management differently to your colleagues or stroke survivors that you work with, and it might be useful to revisit the important areas together as a team to see how you might improve how you work with stroke survivors. As you're no doubt aware, supported self-management is a multidisciplinary team intervention that's been found in clinical trials to improve stroke survivors' outcomes. So it's clearly an important area that, if well adopted, could help reduce the burden on clinicians' caseloads and improve stroke survivors' quality of life. Despite these obvious attractions, it's still unclear what supported self-management actually looks like, so we set about exploring the views of those involved in supported self-management and community stroke care to find out what's important in making it work. We chose Q methodology to undertake this study. Q is a type of mixed method where subjective statements are rank ordered from most to least important and analysed to identify shared and different viewpoints. We plan on using these viewpoints to inform the rest of our larger study, the Impetus project. Q methodology is an engaging way of asking people for their views. It allowed us to really dig deep into what people thought about supported self-management. A Q study is characterised by two key stages. Firstly, data collection called Q sorting, which is a rank ordering of a set of statements called a Q set. And secondly, factor analysis to identify patterns of similarity between sorts. So to start with, we developed our statements. We scoured the literature and spoke to experts about important elements of supported self-management and whittled it down to 32 statements. We then printed the 32 Q-set statements on small yellow cards the size of credit cards, like you can see in figure 1 on the poster, and we took these cards to the face-to-face data collection. At data collection, we did the Q sorts. Here we asked our participants to look through the statements, then sort them into 3 piles: most important, important, and least important. Then we got our participants to organise the cards on the normal distribution grid you see in figure 2 on the poster. Next, we asked them why they placed the cards in high and low ranking positions to understand more about their views. Participants were stroke survivors and managers of community stroke teams, and they took part in one-to-one interviews, and also clinicians working with stroke survivors in the community, and they took part in focus groups. We then conducted a factor analysis. The aim of the analysis is to identify clusters of respondents who've completed their Q sorts in a similar way to reveal a set of shared viewpoints. The stroke survivors were a median of 18 months post-stroke, and we spoke to experienced nurses, physios, OTs, speech and language therapists, and clinical psychologists. We found some really interesting results. There were 4 clear factors or shared viewpoints. The selected factors explain 46% of the total variation in the sample. Stroke survivors loaded onto all 4 factors, and factor 2 is the only factor defined by stroke survivors alone. The rest of the factors were defined by a mix of participants. This is important because it means that not everyone thinks the same thing, and also that stroke survivors, clinicians and managers often shared viewpoints, which might not be what you expected. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty of the findings. Participants loading onto factor 1 emphasised the importance of a person-centred approach, focusing on the stroke survivor's own individual needs and meaningful, hopeful goals. Participants loading onto factor 2 thought it's important to listen to the stroke survivor and that they feel cared for and supported. Participants loading onto factor 3 thought that there's preparation and resources needed to embed supported self-management practice where they were. And finally, participants loading onto factor 4 emphasised the importance of support provided when stroke survivors really need it, and that clinicians understand the needs of the individual and can tailor support accordingly. Regardless of viewpoint, we find that there were things that are important to everybody. When you read the important things in the poster, you'll see that the shared important things make sense. And on the face of it, they might even seem obvious. You might even do them really well already, but they may serve as a really good starting point for a discussion with your team about what your own views are and how you might move forward to improve your practice together. We're using these findings to inform the larger Impetus project, and you can find out more by scanning the QR code. Thanks for listening.